Welcome, weary traveler. You've left behind the noise of the world and stepped into a realm untouched by time. Here, candlelight dances upon ancient stone walls, and the air carries the soft hum of forgotten lullabies beyond these gates. The night is gentle, and every story is a silver thread, weaving warmth around your heart. So, rest your mind. Let each word be a quiet step into the halls of dreams, until sleep, tender and deep, finds you. You are safe here, and slowly, the world drifts away. Let's begin gently. Here is chapter 1, The Lantern Pather. First thing I remember is the quiet. Not the kind that feels empty, but the kind that hums softly beneath the world. A stillness that carries the breath of trees, the hush of distant rivers, and the faint murmur of forgotten dreams. The moon was high, silver and round, casting its reflection over a road made not of stone, but of pale dust that shimmered like frost. The air smelled faintly of rain that had never fallen. I walked slowly, though I could not remember why I had begun to walk at all. My steps made no sound. Somewhere far behind, there must have been the life I had known, streets with noise, faces I could name, voices that carried meaning. Yet here, beneath the quiet moon, all of that felt like an echo swallowed by mist. A lantern hung from a crooked post by the roadside. Its glass was fogged, its flame small but steady, breathing softly as though alive. When I passed beneath it, the light rippled gently across my hands, pale gold and warm, though the air was cold. Ahead, the road wound downward through the forest, tall pines and willows leaning close, their branches whispering against each other. It felt as though they watched me, not unkindly, but with the patient curiosity of something that has seen 1,000 wanderers before. I kept walking. The path curved and dipped, leading into a valley where mist moved like a living thing, silver ribbons flowing slow and endless. Beneath that veil, I saw faint glimmers, more lanterns, scattered like fallen stars. They marked a village that breathed softly in the hollow between the hills, the village that exists only for the lost. I did not yet know its name, but somehow, my heart did. Each step down the hill felt slower, softer. The mist curled around my ankles like cool silk. I could hear, somewhere far below, the sound of water, a stream perhaps, or many small streams weaving together like threads of music. The rhythm of it matched my breathing, gentle and deep, in and out, in and out. Like a lullaby, the world itself was humming. When I reached the edge of the village, I found a stone archway worn smooth by time, covered in moss that glowed faintly green beneath the moonlight. No gate barred the entrance, just an open passage, waiting as I stepped through. A soft wind brushed against my face, carrying with it 1,000 faint scents: wood smoke, lavender, old parchment, and something sweeter, like bread baking in a hearth I could not yet see. The streets were narrow, paved with cobblestones that glistened as though wet. Small houses lined the way, their roofs steep and their windows lit from within by soft golden light. Yet, though the windows glowed, I saw no one moving behind them. Only shadows, shifting gently as if the house itself breathed. I paused beside a fountain in the center of the square. The water rose in slow arcs, glimmering silver in the moonlight before falling back with barely a sound. A carved stone figure stood in its heart, a woman cloaked in flowing robes. Her eyes closed, hands cupped together as if catching rain. When I leaned closer, I saw that the basin was filled not only with water, but with fragments of light, tiny glowing motes, drifting lazily like dandelion seeds. They floated up when I exhaled near them, rising and fading into the mist. Each one, a voice whispered behind me, is a forgotten dream. I turned, but the square was empty. Only the fountain's glow remained, the woman's stone face serene and unchanging. Yet the voice had been calm, kind, as though someone had spoken not with words, but directly into my thoughts. I sat by the fountain for a long time. The stones beneath me were cool, but the air around felt warm, protective somehow. I let my breathing match the rhythm of the water, slow, steady, peaceful. In the silence, I began to feel a strange comfort. The road I had come from no longer felt behind me, nor did it lead forward. It simply vanished, as if the village had folded around me like a soft blanket. I thought of the word, lost. Perhaps, I realized, it did not mean gone forever. Perhaps it simply meant waiting, waiting to be found by something gentle. A faint sound drew my eyes upward. A lantern swayed above one of the houses, its flame flickering lazily. Then another and another. All through the square, the lanterns began to sway together, moved by some invisible breath. Their golden light shimmered across the mist like ripples on water. I watched until my eyelids grew heavy. When I finally closed my eyes, I felt no fear, no question of where I was or how I had come here. Only the warmth of the lanterns, the hush of the trees, the sound of my breathing melting into the stillness. And just before sleep claimed me, I thought I heard soft footsteps approach the slow tread of someone familiar, someone who had been waiting for me in this quiet village where the lost ones come to rest. Beautiful. Let us drift deeper now. Here is the next part of the dream. Chapter 2, The Keeper of the Lanterns. When I awoke, the world had not changed. The same hush lay over the village, soft as a blanket drawn up to the chin of the earth. The same mist drifted between the houses, glowing faintly as though filled with starlight. But something had shifted, subtly, like the slow turning of a tide. The air smelled of morning, though no sun rose above the hills. The moon still lingered, pale and enormous, casting its silver calm across the rooftops. I sat up beside the fountain. The water's voice was still the same, steady, whispering, timeless. The light within it, those fragments of forgotten dreams, continued to float in and out of the basin, drifting upward before fading into the mist. For a moment, I simply breathed, in and out. Each breath seemed to echo faintly, as though the village inhaled with me, exhaled with me, a slow, shared rhythm that soothed the heart. Then I noticed movement. Down one of the narrow lanes, a figure approached, slow, deliberate, carrying something that flickered with soft gold. A lantern, The figure was wrapped in a long cloak of faded blue-gray, the edges lined with small brass charms that tinkled softly as they walked. Their face was hidden by the deep hood, but the way they moved carried a kind of patience, the patience of someone who has walked this path countless times before. When they reached the square, they stopped a few paces away from me and lifted the lantern slightly. Its flame glowed warmly, painting their hands in amber light. "You're awake," they said, their voice calm, low, threaded with the softness of distant rain. "That's a good sign. It means the village has accepted you." I blinked, still half inside sleep's embrace. Accepted me. They tilted their head. The hood shifted just enough for me to glimpse a gentle smile. Pale eyes that shimmered faintly like glass under moonlight. "Only the lost arrive here," they said. "But not all who arrive are meant to stay." Their words floated like feathers, settling lightly on my thoughts. I did not ask how they knew I was lost. Somehow, I understood that everyone who came here carried that same quiet emptiness, the space between who they were and who they might still become. The figure stepped closer. "Come," they murmured. "There is warmth waiting." They led me down one of the cobblestone streets, past shuttered cottages and hanging vines that glowed faintly where the lantern light touched them. The mist curled lazily around our feet. Trailing behind like a slow-moving sea, we reached a small house at the edge of the square. Its wooden door was carved with intricate spirals, like ripples spreading from a drop of rain. The figure pushed it open and gestured for me to enter inside. The air was filled with a golden hush, warmth from a hearth, faint scent of honey and herbs. Shelves lined the walls, each holding rows of lanterns, tall, short, round, square, hundreds of them, their flames whispering softly in unison. "This," the figure said, setting their lantern on a wooden table, "is where the lost are tended." They removed their hood. Beneath it was a face both ageless and kind, framed by strands of pale hair that glimmered faintly, as if woven with threads of moonlight. "I am called Lise," they said, "the keeper of the lanterns." I looked around the room, mesmerized. Each lantern's flame seemed alive, its light moving as if breathing. "What are they?" I asked softly. "Souls who wander between remembering and forgetting," Lise replied. "Dreams that have drifted too far. Pieces of those who are still searching for themselves." They lifted one of the smaller lanterns and held it between us. Inside, the flame flickered in hues of gold and blue, swirling like a living heart. "This one," Lise whispered, "belonged to a boy who forgot how to dream. He will find his way again one night, and when he does, the flame will return to him." I stared at it, feeling something stir deep within, a faint recognition. Though I could not name it, Lys set the lantern back in its place and turned toward me. "You should rest again soon," they said gently. "The village gives rest before it gives answers." "I don't even know how I came here," I murmured. "Few do," Lise said. "The road to this place appears only when a soul has wandered too long in its own shadow. But once you're here, you are safe." They offered me a small cup of something warm, a clear liquid that shimmered faintly like melted light. I sipped it, and its taste was unlike anything I'd known. Part honey, part rain, part memory. It spread warmth through my chest and quieted the last tremor of unease inside me. Lys sat across from me by the hearth. "In this village," they said softly, "time does not move as it does elsewhere. Here, moments stretch. Each breath is a step toward healing." The fire crackled gently. Outside, I could hear the faint sigh of the mist, the distant whisper of the fountain. Lise lifted their gaze toward the shelves of lanterns. When someone lost arrives, they continued, a new flame is lit. The village breathes a little brighter. Every lost soul adds its light until it remembers where it belongs. I looked at the countless lanterns, their glow weaving a pattern across the walls. And I wondered, was one of them mine? Lee seemed to sense the thought. They smiled, their voice soft as sleep. In time, they said, you will know which one is yours. Then they rose, took a fresh lantern from the shelf, and placed it gently into my hands. Its flame was pale, uncertain, trembling as if just born. This, they whispered, will guide you through the village. Wherever you wander, keep it close. It will remember the way, even when you cannot. I held the lantern carefully. It was warm, not hot, but alive, as though it carried a heartbeat that echoed faintly against my palms. Outside, the mist waited, silver and serene. I stepped out into it, my new lantern lighting a small circle of gold around me. The cobblestones glistened like dew. Behind me, Lisa's voice drifted through the still air. Every lost soul finds its path in time. Walk slowly. Breathe deeply. The village will show you what you came to remember. And so I walked, lantern in hand, heart quiet, the mist parting gently before me. Each step felt lighter, as if I was sinking not into the earth, but into the dream itself. The flame flickered softly, casting shapes across the fog, shapes that almost looked like faces, or memories, or pieces of a life I had once lived. But I did not chase them. I simply walked, breathing in the warmth, the stillness, and the knowing that I was exactly where I needed to be. Beautiful. Let's drift deeper into the dream now, where sound becomes light and memory flows like water. Chapter 3. The River of Reflections. The mist led me onward. It curled around my feet and swayed like breath, guiding me down narrow paths that wound between quiet cottages. The air carried the faint perfume of jasmine and rain-soaked earth. My lantern flickered softly, casting its trembling light upon walls draped in ivy and windows that glowed dimly from within. Occasionally, I caught the faint echo of a lullaby, someone humming behind shuttered doors. A melody so distant it could have been a memory rather than a sound. I followed the road until it opened into a wide glade. There, under the moon's silver gaze, flowed a river, broad, calm, and glass-like. Its surface reflected the world so perfectly that I could not tell where the sky ended and the water began. I stepped closer, the stones cool beneath my feet. The river whispered softly, a sound like sighing silk. Every ripple glowed faintly with starlight. As I knelt by the edge, I saw not only the reflection of my face, but countless others, faint silhouettes drifting like smoke across the water. They looked peaceful, their eyes closed, as though asleep within the reflection itself. My lantern's light shimmered across the surface, and one of the faces seemed to stir. It was not frightening, only deeply still, like a dream awakening within another dream. A voice rose from the water, calm and low, carried on the rhythm of the current. Do not be afraid. The river remembers all who have been lost. I looked around, but there was no one else on the shore. Only the voice, gentle and ancient, speaking through the hush. The river reflects not what you are, it murmured, but what you have forgotten. Its words sank softly into me, and I felt a slow warmth spreading through my chest. I looked again into the water, and this time the reflection changed. The face before me was my own, but younger, eyes bright, unburdened, a faint smile playing upon lips that had not yet known the weight of longing. Behind that reflection shimmered shapes, a meadow, laughter, someone's hand reaching for mine. Then the image rippled, fading back into the mirrored calm. I exhaled. Is this what I came to see? The river whispered, this is what you came to remember. I sat by the water's edge for a long time, listening to its song. Each wordless note seemed to brush gently against old wounds, not to reopen them, but to soothe them. I felt something loosening inside, a kind of acceptance I had not known I was searching for. The lantern beside me swayed slightly, though there was no wind. Its flame glowed steadier now, as if breathing in rhythm with the river. The keeper sent you, the voice continued softly. Few reach the water so soon. You must have carried longing for a very long time. I touched the river's surface. The moment my fingers brushed it, the coolness seeped through me. Not like cold, but like clarity. The reflections deepened. I saw fragments. A candlelit room, laughter spilling like honey, a letter left unread. They flickered and dissolved, leaving ripples that spread toward the far shore beyond those ripples. I noticed something strange. Faint lantern lights drifting across the water, hundreds of them, moving slowly as if pulled by an unseen current. Their glow merged with the stars above, blurring heaven and river into one endless mirror. The lanterns, I whispered, they are the memories of those still wandering, the voice replied. Each light carries a name, a feeling, a promise. Some return, some fade. All are loved. Its words were soft as lullabies. Can I cross? I asked after a while. The river's current deepened, its voice now like the hum of a harp string. In time, it said, the path across is not for feet, but for hearts that remember who they are. I stayed there, breathing with the river, feeling the rhythm of its endless calm. The mist above drifted like pale silk veils, parting occasionally to reveal the moon's reflection round. Perfect, eternal. After a while, I noticed another figure approaching from the path behind me. Their steps were soundless, their forms soft-edged like everything in this dream-shaped village. It was an old woman, wrapped in a shawl the color of dusk. She carried no lantern, yet her hands glowed faintly, as if holding invisible light. She smiled when she saw me. You found the river, she said, her voice no louder than a sigh. It finds all who listen. Do you live here? I asked softly. She nodded. I have lived in many places, and none. The river called me long ago. Now I tend its stories. She knelt beside me, her reflection settling beside mine on the glass-like water. Each person who comes here leaves something behind, she continued. A sorrow, a memory, sometimes a name. Her eyes lifted to the drifting lanterns across the river, and in return, the village gives them stillness, until they are ready to remember the path home. We sat in silence together. The sound of the river filled the spaces between our thoughts. At last, she reached out and touched my lantern gently. Your light is young, she whispered. It listens well. That is rare. The flame brightened beneath her fingers, casting a golden ripple across the water. For an instant, the reflections shimmered with warmth, not just light, but comfort, like the touch of a familiar hand in darkness. She looked at me, her eyes full of moonlight. When you next return here, follow the sound, not the sight. The river sings your way forward. Then she rose, her steps slow and soundless, and walked back into the mist. I sat long after she was gone. The river murmured softly, lulling me into a drowsy peace. The mist thickened, wrapping me in its silvery calm. My eyelids grew heavy again, and the world dimmed until only the rhythm of water remained. As I drifted towards sleep, I thought I heard faint music from across the river, flutes, distant and sweet, as though played by unseen hands on the far shore. The melody lingered in my heart, soft as the breath of dreams. And before I slipped fully away, the river whispered one last thing, so quiet it could have been my own thought. Do not fear being lost. The lost are simply those the world has not finished loving yet. Lovely, let us drift further, deeper into the dream's hush, where words forgotten still wait to be read. Chapter 4, The House of Forgotten Letters. When I woke, the mist had thinned to a silver veil, and my lantern still glowed faintly beside me. The river was quiet now, still as polished glass, its reflections calm and unbroken. The air felt lighter, touched with the fragrance of parchment and ink, as though the wind had passed through an old library. I stood slowly, my body weightless, my breath soft. The village seemed to be holding its breath too, waiting for me to move, to take another gentle step into its story. The path ahead wound between cottages with moss-covered roofs. Vines crept up their walls, bearing tiny pale blossoms that glowed like faint stars. My lantern's light flickered across them, and they swayed as if bowing in greeting. I walked until I came upon a building larger than the rest, not tall, but wide, its walls made of weathered stone. The doors stood slightly ajar, and from within came a faint rustling sound, like pages turning or letters whispering to each other. Over the doorway hung a wooden sign carved with curling letters that read, "The House of Forgotten Letters." I paused, feeling a shiver of curiosity, not of fear. The air here hummed softly, as though the house itself was breathing stories. When I stepped inside, a gentle golden glow met me, not from lanterns this time, but from countless sheets of paper that floated slowly in the air. They drifted without wind, circling like leaves in slow motion, each one inscribed with words written in delicate hands. Rows of shelves stretched into the dimness, each stacked with scrolls, envelopes, and parchment tied with faded ribbons. The scent of old ink filled the room, comforting, familiar, eternal. A figure sat at a long wooden table near the far wall. Their hair was silver, bound in a loose braid, and they wore spectacles that caught the candlelight in soft flashes. A quill moved in their hand, scratching steadily upon parchment. Without looking up, they spoke in a calm, steady tone. "You've come from the river." I nodded, though I wasn't sure they could see me. "Yes, that means you've begun to remember." Their voice was low, melodic, carrying the weight of someone who had spoken to dreams for centuries. I approached slowly. "What is this place?" They set the quill down and lifted their gaze to me. Their eyes were the color of faded ink, deep, thoughtful, and kind. "This is where unspoken words rest," they said. "Letters that were written but never sent. Thoughts whispered to silence. Promises left in the corners of memory." I looked around. The air shimmered faintly as papers floated past, each carrying a soft, golden glow. I could see faint lines written upon them, apologies, farewells, words of love never spoken aloud. They all find their way here. I asked softly. The caretaker smiled. "Every word ever meant finds its home. Even when forgotten by those who wrote them, the words remember." They rose and gestured for me to follow. We walked between shelves so tall they vanished into the soft dark above. Every few steps, a letter would drift down and settle gently on the floor, only to lift again as though remembering it had somewhere to go. "Do they ever reach their destination?" I asked. "Sometimes," the caretaker replied, "when the heart that wrote them learns to listen again." Their fingers brushed against a stack of parchment, and one slipped free. They caught it delicately and handed it to me. The paper was soft, almost weightless. The ink shimmered faintly as I read, to the one I could not say goodbye to. "I hope you found peace in the place I could not follow." The words pulsed faintly as though alive, and a gentle warmth spread through my hands. Not sadness, but release. The caretaker watched me quietly. Every visitor finds a letter meant for them. Sometimes it's one they once wrote and forgot. Sometimes it's one written to them long ago. I looked around at the endless shelves and the floating letters moving like spirits. "And you keep them all." "They keep themselves," the caretaker said with a soft smile. "I only listen." We stopped before a tall cabinet sealed with glass. Inside lay a single scroll, resting upon a velvet cloth. Its ribbon was silver, untied but unfallen. "This one," the caretaker said, "has waited longer than most." They opened the cabinet and lifted the scroll with great care. "The village brought it here the night you arrived." I felt my pulse slow, though my heart did not race. It was as if time held its breath. The caretaker placed the scroll in my hands. "Perhaps it belongs to you." I unrolled it slowly. The ink shimmered faintly, the words forming like ripples in water. "Dear one, wherever you have wandered, know this: you are not gone. You are simply finding your way back through gentler dreams. When you wake, you will not be the same, and that is how the world loves you back." A silence filled the room. Vast, tender, complete. The paper glowed faintly in my hands before dissolving into light, rising like mist toward the rafters. I felt something shift inside me. Not revelation, not memory, but peace. A quiet acceptance that I had been searching for without knowing it. The caretaker nodded, their voice a murmur. "It has found its way home." Then they turned back to their table and resumed their writing. The quill moved with slow grace, each stroke a whisper of ink upon parchment. "Will I ever remember everything I've forgotten?" I asked softly. The caretaker paused, then smiled without looking up. "Only what your heart is ready to remember. The rest will wait for you, safely kept here until you return." I bowed my head slightly, as though to the words themselves. My lantern glowed brighter, its flame steady now, golden and sure. As I stepped back toward the door, the papers above me drifted in gentle swirls, brushing against my shoulders like soft wings. One lingered long enough for me to read a fragment before it floated away. We are never truly lost. We are only finding new ways to be found. Outside, the air was cool and luminous. The mist carried the faint rustle of parchment, as though the letters continued to breathe through the night. I lifted my lantern, and the flame caught 1,000 tiny glimmers in the air. Words, dreams, fragments of thought drifting upward, dissolving into moonlight. And for the first time since I arrived, I whispered aloud to the stillness, "I think I'm beginning to remember what peace feels like." The village answered with silence, soft, warm, and kind. Beautiful, we drift onward again, deeper into the hush where starlight finds its rest. Here is your next chapter, Chapter 5. The inn where the stars sleep night had deepened, yet the moon remained unmoving, silver and steady, suspended in a sky that seemed to breathe. I walked through the quiet streets with my lantern held close. Its light pooled softly upon the cobblestones, tracing golden ripples that followed my steps like faithful shadows. The air was cool and faintly sweet, the scent of lavender mixed with something older, something like ancient rain. I could hear the slow pulse of the river far behind me, its calm rhythm fading into distance. Ahead, the village stretched in a long, winding path that curved upward toward the hills. The mist had thinned, revealing more of the sky. It shimmered with countless stars, not still, but moving gently, as though swaying to some invisible lullaby. As I followed the road, I came upon a building set slightly apart from the others. Its windows glowed with a faint, silvery light, and a wooden sign hung by the door, its letters carved in curling script, "The inn where the stars sleep." I paused, feeling a quiet pull in my chest, a warmth that was not curiosity but recognition, as though I had once dreamed of this place long ago. When I pushed the door open, a chime sounded soft, like a bell rung beneath water. Inside, the light was dim and tender. Hundreds of tiny glass globes hung from the ceiling, each holding a glimmering light that pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. The air shimmered faintly with motes of silver dust drifting in lazy spirals. Behind a polished counter stood a woman with hair as dark as the night sky. She wore a long robe woven with faint constellations that glowed when she moved. Her smile was serene, patient, timeless. "Welcome," she said softly. "You've walked far to reach this place." Her voice felt like warmth poured into quiet. "Is this an inn?" I asked. She nodded gently. "Of sorts. A resting place for travelers between dreams." She lifted one of the glass globes from the counter and held it up. Inside shimmered a faint light, not constant, but flickering, as though the star within was breathing in sleep. "These are the stars," she said. "Each one is the dream of a weary soul. When the world forgets to dream of them, they come here to rest." I gazed upward. The globes above me seemed endless, their lights waxing and waning in a rhythm like gentle breathing. "Do they ever wake?" I whispered. "When someone remembers them," she replied. "A wish, a song, a name whispered to the night. It calls them back to the sky." She set the globe back among the others, and motioned toward the hearth at the center of the room. A soft fire burned there, not orange, but blue-white, flickering like moonlight through glass. "Sit by the fire," she said. "You carry a light of your own now. Let it rest beside the others." I settled near the hearth and placed my lantern on the table before me. Its flame glowed steady, reflecting in the polished wood like a second moon. The woman brought a small cup of something warm, a liquid the color of starlight, faintly sweet and luminous. As I drank, I felt its warmth spreading through me, dissolving every trace of weight or worry. My thoughts slowed until they became as soft as the drifting dust above Dot around the room. I heard faint murmurs, other travelers, perhaps resting in shadowed corners. Their presence was not seen but felt, a shared quiet, a collective sigh. The woman came to sit beside me. "You've crossed the river and entered the house of letters," she said softly. "The village is showing you your own reflection piece by piece." "Why?" I asked, though my voice was barely more than a breath. "So you may remember what your light is made of." I looked at the ceiling again. The stars within their globes shimmered faintly, some bright, some dim, some pulsing as if stirred by dreams. One glimmered more brightly than the rest, directly above the hearth. "That one," I said, pointing, "feels familiar." The woman's eyes followed my gaze. "Perhaps it remembers you." She rose, reached upward, and with effortless grace brought the globe down to rest between us. Inside it, a small flame swirled slowly, gold and white, not constant, but alive. "Each star carries a story," she murmured. "Would you like to hear yours?" I hesitated, then nodded. She touched the glass with her fingertips. The light within brightened, and soft images began to form, not sharp or clear, but blurred like reflections in rippling water. I saw a small cottage by a lake, lamplight flickering through its windows. I saw hands lighting a candle, laughter shared over bread, a song hummed quietly beneath falling rain. Then the images faded, leaving only the warm glow of the star. The woman smiled gently. A quiet life, full of small kindnesses, a heart that loved deeply and lost softly. Her words were not heavy. They felt like truth spoken through a lullaby. I whispered, "Is that me?" "Perhaps," she said. "Or perhaps it is what your soul dreams of becoming again." She placed the globe gently back among the others. "Sleep now. The stars will keep watch. In their company, no one is ever truly alone." She guided me toward a corner where a bed waited soft linen sheets, a blanket that shimmered faintly like woven moonlight. My lantern rested beside it, its light dimming slightly, as if ready to dream too. I lay down and closed my eyes. The air was filled with the faint hum of sleeping stars, a rhythm that matched my heartbeat. As I drifted, I thought I could hear voices above me, not speaking but singing without words, a soft harmony that wrapped around my thoughts like silk. And somewhere between waking and sleep, I realized the stars were not distant at all. They were the memories of every soul who had ever loved, glowing quietly until they were remembered again. I breathed deeply. The fire's glow pulsed in time with my heartbeat. My lantern's flame flickered once, twice, then steadied, as though joining the slow breath of the universe. And as the world dissolved into the quiet dark, I felt the last trace of loneliness lift from me like smoke, leaving only stillness. In the inn where the stars sleep, I slept too safe, held and infinite. beautiful? We'll drift deeper now into the next dream layer, where the night itself begins to bloom. Chapter 6: The Garden of Moon Petals. When I awoke, the inn was silent. The faint chime of sleeping stars still shimmered somewhere high above. But morning, if it could be called that, had not yet arrived. The air was still thick with the fragrance of dreamlight and something softer, like crushed blossoms after rain. My lantern stood by the bedside, its flame now no brighter than a sigh. As I reached for it, the soft voice of the innkeeper echoed faintly in my memory. When the world grows quiet, listen for what blooms beneath silence. The door to my room had been left slightly ajar. A gentle light, silver, pale, and liquid, spilled through it. Drawn by curiosity, I rose and stepped through. Beyond the threshold lay a vast garden, spreading beneath a ceiling of stars. The air was cool and shimmering with a pale mist that glowed faintly with its own hidden light. Pathways of smooth stone wound between silver-leaved trees whose branches drooped with luminous blossoms, petals that glowed like fragments of the moon. Each time the wind stirred, thousands of these petals fell softly to the ground, gathering in slow, shining drifts. They didn't wither. Instead, they pulsed faintly, releasing a whispering sound, like a chorus of sleeping voices, breathing in rhythm. The world felt sacred here, as though I had wandered not into a place, but into someone's heartbeat. I followed a narrow trail between the trees until I reached a pool at the garden center. Its surface reflected the sky so perfectly that it was hard to tell where water ended and the heavens began. Floating upon it were the petals of the silver, flowers each glowing faintly, their reflections rippling in circles of light. I knelt beside the pool, setting my lantern down. Its golden flame merged with the silvery glow, casting a soft, ethereal hue that danced like liquid stars. A soft voice spoke behind me. "You found it." It was the innkeeper, the woman with night-dark hair and constellation eyes. She stepped into the light, carrying a bowl made of translucent glass that seemed to hold the glow of dawn within it. "What is this place?" I asked. "The Garden of Moon Petals," she said. "Every traveler who sleeps beneath our roof is led here, though never twice in the same way." She knelt across from me, her reflection shifting in the still pool. The petals fall from the trees of remembrance. Each petal is a moment the night has chosen to keep. I watched as one petal floated close to the edge, brushing against my fingers. The instant it touched me, a wave of warmth spread through my hand, and with it came an image, the faint memory of a gentle hand brushing hair from my eyes, the smell of tea, the sound of rain tapping softly on a window pane. I gasped, pulling my hand back. "That was a memory," the innkeeper nodded. "One of yours, but I don't remember living it." Her eyes glimmered with quiet knowing. Not all moments we belong to are bound by time. Some exist only as echoes, fragments of what could have been, or what your soul still remembers from before. She reached into the bowl she carried and scattered its contents over the water. The petals she released were golden instead of silver, and when they touched the surface, soft music filled the air, faint, like wind through reeds. "These are the moon's dreams," she said. "Every night, she drops one petal into this pool to remember the worlds she has watched over. Each petal holds the dream of a heart she has guarded while they slept." I stared at the pool, now alive with floating petals that glowed gold and silver together. Their light wove into slow-moving spirals, like galaxies being born in miniature. The innkeeper dipped her hand into the water, then lifted it. Droplets glowing like stars slipped through her fingers. You may take one, she said softly, but only one. Choose with care, for it will show you what your heart most longs to recall. I hesitated, gazing at the hundreds of petals drifting before me. Each shimmered in its own unique rhythm, calling in different ways. But one, near the edge, pulsed faintly in time with my heartbeat, a quiet, golden one. I reached out and lifted it from the surface. The moment my fingers closed around it, the world melted away. I was standing on a quiet hillside, bathed in the light of an enormous, low-hanging moon. Grass swayed in waves beneath me. Beside me stood a figure indistinct, their face hidden by shadow. Yet their presence felt achingly familiar. They turned to me, and though I could not see their features, I could feel the weight of everything unspoken between us: comfort, sorrow, belonging. They reached out and placed their hand over my heart. "You've always carried the light," the figure whispered, "even when you forgot it was yours." The wind stirred, scattering silver petals through the air. As they touched my skin, they dissolved into warmth. The figure smiled, fading slowly into the glow. And when I opened my eyes again, I was back beside the pool. The petal in my palm had turned to dust, luminous, fading, beautiful. The innkeeper regarded me with soft eyes. "Now you remember," she murmured. I nodded. There were no words, only the deep, tranquil silence that follows understanding. She rose, her robes brushing softly through the fallen petals. "You are nearly ready for the next path," she said. "But the road will test your light before dawn comes." "What lies ahead?" I asked. She paused at the edge of the garden and turned back. Her eyes reflected every star in the sky. "The forest of mirrors," she whispered, "where truth walks without disguise." Then she was gone, her figure dissolving into mist, leaving only the gentle rain of glowing petals drifting through the stillness. I lingered a while longer, listening to the quiet hum of the garden, until even the sound of my breathing felt like part of its rhythm. When I finally rose, I took my lantern in hand once more. Its light, I noticed, had changed it, now shimmered with both gold and silver. Moonlight and memory intertwined. The path forward lay beyond the gate, hidden beneath a veil of mist that shimmered faintly like glass. And though I could not yet see what waited beyond, I stepped toward it, calm, steady, unafraid. Very gently, we drift onward into the deeper part of the dream. Here begins Chapter 7, The Forest of Mirrors. The path from the garden was narrow and faintly lit, winding between the last of the moonlit trees. The air felt denser here, as though every breath carried the hush of something sacred. My lantern's glow shimmered across the mist ahead, showing glimpses of what lay beyond. Shapes that shifted, half shadow, half dash, like dot the inn, and its warmth faded behind me like a dream dissolving into dawn. The further I walked, the quieter everything became, until even the sound of my footsteps seemed to be absorbed by the air at last. I reached the edge of the forest. The trees here were unlike any I had ever seen. Their trunks were tall and pale, smooth as glass. and their surfaces shimmered faintly as if coated in dew. But when I looked closer, I realized it wasn't moisture at all. It was reflection. Each trunk mirrored the world around it. The fog, the lantern, my face. Yet each reflection was slightly different. In one, my eyes glowed faintly gold. In another, I stood taller, cloaked in light. In yet another, I wasn't there at all. A breath of wind stirred through the forest, and the mirrored trees whispered softly, their voices like 1,000 versions of my own sighing in unison. I hesitated at the threshold. Then, taking a slow breath, I stepped inside. The first thing I noticed was that time no longer moved in the same way. Each step felt suspended, drawn out, deliberate, like walking through water. My lantern light multiplied endlessly around me, each reflection flickering with its own rhythm as I walked. The path forked in strange ways, sometimes looping back upon itself, sometimes vanishing entirely until I realized I had been walking in circles. The air shimmered faintly with silver dust that glittered when I moved. Then I began to see things. At first, faint shapes in the reflections, a child running between the trees, laughter echoing softly, a woman kneeling beside a river, humming, a hand reaching toward mine. Each image flickered across the mirrored trunks, too quick to hold, too soft to chase. They felt like memories, but not all were mine. Some were unfamiliar, like fragments borrowed from other souls who had once wandered here. As I slowed my pace, the forest seemed to respond. The mirrors brightened, their surfaces rippling as though stirred by unseen fingers. My reflection multiplied again, 1,000 versions of myself standing in endless rows, each lit by the same small flame. I raised the lantern. "What are you?" I whispered, and the reflections whispered back, their voices layered and soft. "We are what you have forgotten." A faint warmth spread through my chest. Forgotten. The nearest reflection stepped forward. It moved exactly as I did, yet not quite slower, deeper, as though my soul moved a fraction of a second behind my body. Its eyes were filled with quiet light. "The lost do not simply lose their way," it said softly, though its lips did not move. "They lose the memory of who they were before they wandered." I stared into its eyes and felt 1,000 moments unfold within them, small, tender things, laughter by candlelight, the sound of rain against a window, the feeling of belonging somewhere unnamed. "I want to remember," I said. The reflection smiled, faint, sorrowful, kind, then walked deeper, so I did. The path curved downward, the air growing cooler. The further I went, the clearer the reflections became, no longer random, but specific. I saw myself sitting by the fountain, speaking with the keeper of lanterns. I saw the garden of moon petals. I saw every step of the journey I had taken since arriving in the village, and then something else, a vision unlike the others. I saw a small cottage at the edge of a field, bathed in amber light. A figure stood by its door, waiting. They held a lantern like mine, and their face was both familiar and impossible to recall. When I reached out to touch the reflection, the image shattered like water disturbed. The forest trembled, not with sound, but with presence, from the space between the trees. A figure emerged, cloaked in mirrored light. Their face was hidden by a veil of shifting reflections, so that no two glances showed the same image. "You have walked far," the figure said, voice gentle but echoing like wind through hollow glass. "Do you know why you came?" I lowered my lantern slightly. "To find the village that exists only for the lost." The figure's smile was faint, their tone almost tender. And what do the lost seek most of all? I hesitated, thinking of all I had seen, the lanterns, the petals, the silent roads. To be found, I whispered. The figure tilted their head, or to remember that they never were lost. They reached out their hand. The air around it shimmered like sunlight through water. Look, they said softly, not with your eyes, but with your quietest self. I closed my eyes. Behind the darkness, light bloomed, slow and deep, like a sunrise hidden beneath the skin. I saw flashes of faces, places, laughter, the rhythm of rain. I saw myself walking through 100 lifetimes, always searching, always arriving here, again and again. When I opened my eyes, the figure was gone. Only the forest remained, and the mirrors, which now reflected not my body, but light itself. The lantern in my hand shone brighter, its flame pure white for a single breath before softening back to gold. I looked around and saw that the path ahead had changed. The mirrored trees gave way to a wide clearing where moonlight poured down like water, illuminating a single bridge of crystal that stretched into the distance at its far end. Through the mist, I glimpsed rooftops faintly glowing, the village again, but not quite the same. A feeling of calm certainty filled me. The forest had not been a place of confusion, but of remembering. Every reflection, every whisper, every shimmer of light had been a fragment of myself returned. I took one last look at the mirrors. The 1,000 reflections bowed their heads in unison, their faces serene. Then I stepped across the threshold, the mist parting before me. The lantern's light led me forward, soft as breath, steady as a heartbeat, into whatever waited beyond. We cross now into the quietest part of the dream, where memory and moonlight begin to merge. Here begins Chapter 8, The Bridge of Whispers. The forest faded behind me like breath against glass. Ahead stretched a bridge that shimmered faintly in the half-light long, delicate, translucent as if spun from moonlight and mist. Beneath it, there was no river, only an endless expanse of silver fog that glowed from within, moving slowly like the tide. When my foot touched the first crystal plank, it gave a sound not of wood or stone, but of music, a low, distant note, pure and gentle. Another step, another note, together forming a rhythm that pulsed softly in the stillness, as if the bridge itself sang me onward. The lantern in my hand flickered, casting arcs of light along the bridge's ribs. Each time the flame swayed, I heard whispers in the mist below, faint, echoing, tender. At first I thought them wind, but then words began to form, quiet voices speaking not to me, but around me, through me. Do you remember the first star you wished upon? Do you remember the sound of your own laughter? Do you remember when the world was small and full of wonder? The voices were my own. Or perhaps they belonged to every version of me that had ever stood at the edge of being lost. I kept walking. Each step was slower, heavier with meaning. The bridge stretched on, suspended between nowhere and home. As I reached its center, The mist below parted slightly, revealing shapes that moved like memories. I saw the reflection of my journey, the lantern path, the fountain of light, the keeper's gentle eyes, the garden of moon petals, the forest of mirrors. All of it flowed beneath me like a single, continuous stream. For a moment, I felt weightless, as though I no longer walked upon the bridge, but drifted through my own remembrance. Then the whispers changed. They grew softer, more distant, as if coming from behind a veil of rain. "You've carried sorrow like a lantern," said one. "You've walked far enough now," said another. "It's time to set it down." I stopped. The flame in my lantern flickered weakly, shrinking to a trembling ember. Set it down. The idea felt strange, like being asked to stop breathing. The lantern had guided me since the beginning. It was the one constant light through every shadowed step. And yet, when I looked closer, I saw what I had not before. Inside the glass, the flame no longer burned with fuel. It was made of my own memories, of faces, laughter, kindness. I could see them flickering faintly within, like ghosts of warmth. I knelt and placed the lantern upon the bridge. Its glow spread outward in a soft wave, turning the mist below into liquid gold. The whispers deepened, becoming a single, unified voice, gentle as sleep, when the lost remember their own light. The village no longer needs to hold them. A stillness filled me, vast and tender. My hands felt lighter, my chest looser, as though something I had carried too long had finally found its rest. The bridge began to shimmer more brightly. Each plank beneath my feet glowed in sequence, leading toward a faint figure that had appeared at the far end, a silhouette standing in the glow, waiting. Their presence radiated calm. They did not move or speak, but I felt a pull toward them, not of urgency, but of belonging. As I drew closer, the mist began to lift, revealing glimpses of the land beyond. Roofs touched with dawnlight, a river winding through soft fields, bells chiming faintly from somewhere unseen. The figure raised a hand, palm open. Light bloomed from it, spreading through the air like ripples through still water. When the glow reached me, I felt warmth settle deep within my chest. "You've walked far," the voice said, neither male nor female, ancient yet soft as breath. "You've crossed the quiet spaces within yourself. You are no longer lost." I tried to speak, but no words came. My throat felt heavy with emotion, too gentle to name. The figure smiled, though I could not see their face clearly. I felt the smile's kindness like sunlight through closed eyes. "Then it is time," they whispered, and with that, the bridge beneath me began to dissolve, not crumbling, but melting softly into the mist, each step turning to light. I felt no fear, only an immense calm as my feet found air, then warmth, then stillness. It was as if the world itself had decided to cradle me. I looked down once more. The lantern I had set upon the bridge now floated freely, its flame rising upward in slow spirals until it drifted into the sky and joined the stars. For a long moment, I simply stood in the glow of what remained, a quiet expanse of endless night, filled not with emptiness but with peace. Then the figure extended their hand toward me once more. "Come," they said softly. "The village waits for you, not as a place, but as the home within your heart." I took their hand. It was warm, real, grounding. The light around us deepened, blooming like dawn through a window. The mist faded entirely, and before me stretched the familiar rooftops of the village, the same square, the same fountain, the same soft glow of windows. But now it all looked different. It was brighter, more alive. The air hummed with quiet joy, as though the whole village breathed in rhythm with me. The keeper stood near the fountain, her lantern raised high. The innkeeper smiled from the doorway. The mirrored figure from the forest bowed their head. All of them, or perhaps all parts of me, waiting. Welcoming the figure beside me, whispered one final truth. Those who find their way here never truly leave. They carry the village with them, a light that guides others through the dark. And in that moment, I understood. The village had never existed for the lost. It existed within them. The light softens now, and so do we. The bridge behind you dissolves, and dawn begins to bloom in the hush of dreams. Here begins Chapter 9, the dawn that never wakes. There was no moment of arrival, only the sensation of warmth, like drifting from one breath into another. The village unfolded around me quietly, its edges blurred with silver mist. Every rooftop glowed faintly with the first light of dawn. Yet no sun rose above the horizon. It was a dawn that hovered, eternal, gentle, soft as the first light seen through closed eyes. The air carried a sweetness I could not name. Bells chimed somewhere distant, their tones clear and slow, each note lingering long enough to fade into the next like a sigh. I walked through the empty streets, but they no longer felt empty. Every window pulsed faintly, as if someone slept peacefully inside. Dreaming the same dream, the fountain still stood in the center of the square, its water glowing with inner light. But now, instead of reflecting my face, it reflected the sky, and within that reflection, I saw movement. Soft shapes drifting like clouds, faces smiling faintly. Lanterns floating upward like golden seeds. The keeper of lanterns stood nearby, her cloak shimmering faintly with morning hues. She was watching the fountain as though seeing something sacred rise from it. "You've returned," she said softly, without turning. I nodded. "But everything looks different." Her smile was patient. "It has not changed. Only your eyes have." I knelt beside her, watching as the ripples in the fountain formed delicate spirals, patterns that seemed to breathe in rhythm with the air. "The bridge led me back," I said. "I saw the lantern rise into the sky. It was never leaving you," she murmured. "It only learned to live where you could always see it." I touched the water's surface. It was warm, like skin, like sunlight. "Is this the end of the road?" She shook her head gently. "There is no end here. The village exists where endings become beginnings. The lost who remember their own light stay long enough to rest, then drift outward, carrying the memory of peace into other worlds." Her voice was slow, almost melodic, each word drawn out as if meant to be breathed rather than heard. The innkeeper appeared then, emerging from the fog with a basket of fresh bread that steamed faintly in the cool air. Her eyes glowed with quiet joy. "He's ready," she said softly to the keeper. The keeper nodded. Almost, she turned back to me. "There is one place left for you to see before the dawn completes its circle." She led me along a narrow street I hadn't noticed before, a lane that curved gently uphill, lined with lanterns that no longer burned but glowed from within as though filled with sleeping stars. The cobblestones beneath my feet hummed faintly with warmth. At the hill's crest stood a single tree, tall, pale, and covered in blossoms the color of pearl. Beneath it rested a bench made of smooth stone. From here, the whole village was visible, rooftops dusted with mist, chimneys exhaling lazy ribbons of light. "This," said the keeper, "is where the dawn never wakes." I sat on the bench, setting my hands on my knees. The light here was unlike anything I had seen. Not bright, not dim, but balanced perfectly between night and day. It was the still point between breaths, the silence between heartbeats. "It feels," I whispered, "like the world is holding its breath." The keeper smiled. "It is. Every soul who comes here leaves behind a piece of stillness. The village gathers them all, every sigh, every quiet moment of surrender, and weaves them into this eternal dawn." I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. The air entered my lungs like light. For the first time, I realized I could feel the rhythm of the entire village, the soft pulse beneath the earth, the steady hum of unseen hearts, the endless calm that stretched outward like a tide. When I opened my eyes again, I saw them, faint figures moving through the mist below. Some I recognized, the reflection from the forest, the figure from the bridge, even the shadow that had once followed me down the first lantern path. Each walked with quiet purpose, carrying faint glows in their hands. "They're all me," I said softly. "Versions of you," the keeper answered. "Every moment you found yourself, every time you reached out for light, they gathered here. You have walked this path many times, through many dreams. Each step was another return." The words felt like both revelation and release. I looked down at my hands. They glowed faintly now, light seeping through my skin as if something inside had finally awakened. The keeper watched quietly. "That is the gift of the dawn that never wakes. It shows you that you are both the wanderer and the way home." Silence settled between us, not empty, but complete. I felt something shift in the air, like a gentle exhale. The petals from the tree began to fall, slow, luminous, each drifting with its own quiet gravity. They landed softly on my shoulders, my lap, my hair dissolving into warmth the instant they touched me. The keeper rose. "When you leave this place," she said softly, "the world will seem the same, but it will no longer weigh upon you. The stillness you found here will walk with you, a lantern you can never lose." She turned and began to walk down the hill. The mist parted before her, and I could hear her voice fading like a lullaby. "Remember," she whispered, "you were never meant to stay lost, only to remember how to be found." I sat there long after she disappeared, watching as the eternal dawn shimmered across the rooftops. The sky did not brighten nor dim. It remained poised between both, an endless, peaceful beginning. Somewhere below, the fountain sang softly, the village breathing in perfect rhythm. I leaned back, letting my eyes close, feeling the warmth seep through every part of me. And as my thoughts dissolved into quiet, I understood the dawn that never wakes is not a time or a place. It is the heart's resting point, the space where all wanderers finally exhale. This is the final descent, the place where breath slows, thought fades, and the dream folds gently closed. Here begins the last part of your story. Chapter 10, where the lost ones sleep. The hill was still. Only the wind moved soft and slow, carrying the faint shimmer of falling petals. The eternal dawn glowed faintly in the distance, a horizon of gold that never rose, never set. I sat for what might have been hours, or perhaps no time at all. Time, here, had become the rhythm of my breathing, in and out, in and out. The steady song of existing without needing to go anywhere else. Below me, the village breathed, quiet, luminous, timeless. Smoke drifted from chimneys like ribbons of silk. Bells chimed softly at unseen intervals, their echoes dissolving into the mist. It felt less like a place and more like the memory of peace itself. At last I rose. The petals had gathered thick upon the path, glowing faintly where they touched the earth. I followed them down the hill, my steps soundless. The keeper's words echoed in my mind. You were never meant to stay lost, only to remember how to be found. Each house I passed seemed to sigh softly, as if recognizing me. The lanterns swayed gently in their hooks, though no wind stirred them. Their flames burned low, not from fading, but from rest. As I reached the fountain once more, I saw that the water had changed. It no longer reflected the sky, but shimmered instead with the faces of those who had passed through this village. Before me, each one serene, half asleep, their features bathed in silver light. The innkeeper stood by the water's edge, her basket now empty. She smiled as I approached. You've walked your full circle, she said gently. The village remembers you. Will I stay? I asked softly. Her eyes warmed. Only as long as you need to rest. I looked again at the fountain, at the countless reflections drifting slowly across its surface. And the others. They sleep, she whispered. Each one rests within their own quiet dream, until they are ready to return to the waking world, carrying this peace with them, so the world may be gentler for it. The thought filled me with warmth. I realized then that the village wasn't a destination. It was a sanctuary of the spirit, a place that opened itself when the heart grew too heavy to wander further. The innkeeper reached into her sleeve and drew out something small, a seed, glowing faintly, shaped like a teardrop. This is what remains, she said. Every traveler takes one when they go. Plant it wherever the night feels longest, and it will remind you that light lives even there. She placed it in my palm. It pulsed once, warm, alive, before settling into stillness. I closed my fingers around it and nodded. Thank you. The sound of the fountain deepened, like a lullaby hummed by the earth itself. The air thickened with warmth and calm, every breath softening the edges of thought. I felt my body grow light, my eyelids heavy. Will I dream again? I asked. The innkeeper smiled. You never stopped. She stepped back, her form blurring in the mist, until only her lantern's glow remained a small, steady light floating where she had stood. The mist around the square deepened, swirling like gentle tides. The rooftops faded, the trees softened into outlines, and the bells in the distance slowed their song until they were no more than echoes in the chest. I lay down beside the fountain, the petals forming a bed of soft silver beneath me. The stone was cool, grounding. The air hummed low and warm. The water whispered beside my ear, not in words, but in rhythm, the sound of waves lapping endlessly against a distant shore. I felt it then, the presence of all who had come before me. They were here, unseen but near. Their peace surrounded me, vast and kind. Above, the sky deepened into an ocean of stars. The moon drifted through them like a ship at anchor, its light spilling down in long, soft strands. I breathed deeply, once, twice, and felt the line between body and world dissolve. There was no need to move, no need to seek. Only the steady pulse of warmth beneath my skin, the slow rhythm of the night breathing with me. And in that stillness, I heard it, the final whisper of the village. Sleep now. You are home. The words folded around me like the softest blanket. My thoughts drifted, untethered. My body melted into the earth's gentle weight. Somewhere, a lantern flickered and dimmed, not extinguished, but released. The fountains sang one last note, then fell into silence. The petals settled. The wind rested. And the village, that quiet, dreaming haven of light and mist, returned once more to its eternal rhythm, waiting patiently for the next wanderer to arrive. The village that exists only for the lost, a dream of remembrance, a lullaby for weary hearts, and a promise that even when you lose your way, somewhere within the stillness, a lantern waits, softly glowing to guide you home.